look all these certain ways, but then tell me I can't like do any of the things that I need to do to look that way. You know, like if you want Botox, get Botox. If you want to wax, like I just can't. Like I can't with you people. You know what I mean?
Again, I think it's both and, right? I think it's like adoration or like adorning yourself is a ancient practice.
Yeah.
And yes, we're all swimming in the soup of what we're supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And I do what the fuck I want.
Totally. Welcome to Are We Happy Yet? A podcast that seeks to answer the age-old question, why are we all so damn unhappy no matter what we do? A far cry away from the latest self-help craze or wellness tips, on this podcast, we won't shy away from the hard but critical conversations about the true causes of our unhappiness epidemic.
Join us, Hannah Buzzo, licensed therapist, and Jane Thatcher Hahn, licensed clinical social worker, on our journey to understand what will truly, finally make us happy.
Let's go. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. We have a very badass guest on today, Erica Bonham, who is a good friend. She's an author. She's a therapist. She gets into all sorts of good trouble. She's doing great things in her community. And she, beyond all of that, has a multitude of identities and things that she does in the world that we're really excited to hear about. I met Erica because I actually hired her to do some supervision with me around EMDR because she's an incredible trauma therapist and I needed help when I was learning to do EMDR, and she really helped my practice and really moved me forward a lot. And so I'm really grateful for her and really grateful to have her on the podcast today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jane. That was so sweet. All that love back to you, girl.
Yeah, thank you. Super, super excited to have you. We were talking before the podcast. We've got some really interesting topics, and Erica and her work kind of embody everything that we've been exploring on the podcast, Are We Happy Yet? So we are going to have a really interesting conversation today. Like I said, you've got multiple identities, but do you want to, from your perspective, tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, what you get into, all of that stuff?
Yeah, sure. So, all of my identities. Let's see. I'm a mama, I'm a partner, I'm a queer identified person. I am a trauma recovery therapist. I still incorporate a lot of EMDR. I'm also a psychedelic trained therapist, so I incorporate a lot. Well, I predominantly work with ketamine because that's the legal substance that we can work with. And yeah, just sort of religious trauma stuff. And as we were talking about before, I think we're starting to evolve and move out of individual psychotherapy and thinking about collective healing and thinking about reclaiming spirituality if you've had shitty experiences with religion. And so I think my identities are important and they're dissolving at the same time or expanding. If that makes sense. It's just, I feel more moving beyond just that identity of therapist or any of those identities, right? I'm all the things and none of the things.
Yeah.
Right. Erica, what's been, if we can just jump right in there, what's your process been like with starting to dissolve that, starting to explore that, starting to be with all of them and none of them? Like, what has led you to this place?
Well, honestly, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is doing psychedelic work myself around my trauma. And, I have done EMDR for years and IFS for years and all the things, somatic therapy for years. And all of that was very important, very important. And my experience with ketamine assisted psychotherapy, it just allowed me to actually get to, so I'm another identity is I'm an adopted kid. And it allowed me to get to that abandoned baby part in a way that I just couldn't before. And so my mom is my adoptive mom. So it wasn't genetically passed on to me, but she was a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And I truly felt like I was processing her trauma in ketamine space. And so I think healing that generational piece
Yeah.
has just allowed a sort of expansion that was unexpected, you know? Yeah. So I think a both and process is like knowing your identities and owning your identities and simultaneously letting them be flexible or letting them dissolve. I think that both and process is important where we are in our collective history.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm almost hearing it as a value or a lifestyle for you because you're bringing it to so many pieces of your life, the both and idea.
Yes.
Is that like getting above those identities or dissolving? Like, tell us more about the both and.
Yeah, I don't
value.
even think it's getting above them because I think it's important to know them and own them and you know, again, where we are in our human story, in our collective story, identity still matters, right? The system still negatively impacts Black and brown bodies and trans bodies. So those identities matter in this physical world. I don't want to gaslight that, right? I think a lot of people who work in maybe more spiritual realms tend to bypass the impact of identity. And so I don't want to do that because I think it's important. And to hold that alongside of knowing the bigger truth, which is that we are all connected, that we are always enough and lovable and worthy and interconnected to every living thing on this planet, regardless, you know, and even from a secular perspective, that is becoming clearer that we are connected to each other. So again, I think it's just holding that paradoxical truth of, yes, we live in a physical world. Yes, identity matters. And it's beyond that too.
Right.
Do you think this is what I do with my clients, ask leading questions. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to state my opinion.
Go for it.
I feel like culturally, we are encouraged not to hold many things at once. Like there's often a black and white, right? You're Republican or you're a Democrat. You're a man, you're a woman, you're this, you're that. You're rich, you're poor, you're old, you're young. Do you have any thoughts on why that is? Like, why would we be encouraged to be so black and white?
I freaking love this question. I'm so glad you asked this question. And yes, I do, girl. I have an opinion on this. And it is about trauma. So the limbic system is organized around self-protection. And the limbic system and the trauma organized system is good, bad, safe, not safe, go. And when you are being jackknifed on a highway, you want that. You want very quick, reactive, good, bad, safe, not safe, go. You do not want nuanced thinking online. Like, I wonder if the truck driver's having a bad day. You don't, that will kill you. But when your general system, and I believe our collective nervous system, is organized around self-protection, is organized around those binaries, and it creates this false sense of certainty. And the limbic system fucking loves certainty. It is why toxic religion is so successful, because it plays on our natural needs for belonging and safety, and the certainty that we get, the certainty of this division that between the right and the left in this country, the certainty that, you know, we get whenever we are dogmatic about something. The limbic system loves that. It's like, ooh, let me marinate in my righteousness and my certainty. And it gives you a false sense of safety and power.
Yeah, wow.
Makes a lot of
That's
sense.
sinking, yeah.
So certainty equals survival. And so this exploration of nuance and, you know, obviously not in times of actual life or death, but 99.9% of our lives when, you know, I mean, we could die at any time. But I guess what I'm saying is the nuance goes against our innate way of surviving, like our body's way of surviving.
Totally. And
Yeah.
it's not wrong. And
Yeah.
then again, when we're thinking about systemic oppression, for example, we don't want to bypass that. Like
Yeah.
trans bodies feel a certain sense of unsafety all of the time.
Totally.
Black and brown bodies feel a sense of unsafety most of the time.
Right.
Even if there's not immediate danger, your collective system is organized around that all of the time. And even just in general, I think our collective system, especially in the United States, is on alert all of the time.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong because there is a certain, even if we think about climate change, I mean, there is a certain danger there. And we don't want to be, super ethereal when we're talking about that kind of thing. We need physical systemic change around that. And, we don't want to just sit there going like, putting good energy out into the earth is enough to address climate change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Putting good energy and meditating is enough to address systemic racism. That's insufficient. We have to make some physical changes. And we got to work in that spiritual realm and collective realm and energetic realm. And so there's that both and again, and that trauma piece again, and that generational trauma piece again.
Yeah.
And the nervous system, like healing your body and healing your nervous system is one of the most spiritual practices that you can do, right? I think a lot of spiritual practitioners will say, oh, just pray and meditate and then your anxiety will heal. Or, oh, pray and meditate and your nervous system will heal. And I kind of want to flip that on its head. It's like, no, addressing your body, embracing the magic of your body. The body is the gateway and healing that actually opens up this more expansive way of being and allows you to be able to hold the brutality of the world and the beauty of the world in the same breath.
Erica, what does it actually mean to heal the nervous system? Right? Like, I think that's a hot topic. And so like, what is your definition? How do you see that? What is healing the nervous system?
Yeah. I mean, in this way, I'll pull on some of the experts, right? Like Dan Siegel and Porges and stuff like that. So I often think about window of tolerance as well as social engagement. So the window of tolerance, right? If you go out of the window of tolerance at the top, you're in flight or fight. If you go out of the window of tolerance at the bottom, you're in dissociation. And so
when you say tolerance, sorry, just so people know, tolerance is like emotional tolerance, right?
Yes,
like
emotional. Like, so your ability to stay present and regulated. And so in polyvagal theory, it's like to stay grounded, to be able to stay connected, to be able to co-regulate, as well as stay differentiated in your own system, to stay grounded, mindful, present, to quiet the reactivity. You might still be, acknowledging your anger and acknowledging your fear or acknowledging your body's kind of procedural way of shutting down or dissociating. And you're slowly growing your window of being able to choose something different. And when our system is organized around trauma, it is not happening in the choosing part of your brain.
Yeah.
The vagus nerve runs from the gut to the brainstem. And the vagus nerve is in charge of 75% of regulating your nervous system. It is in charge of heart regulation, blood sugar regulation, calming the flight or fight response, heart rate, digestion, immunity, all of this stuff, right? So if it doesn't connect to the frontal lobes.
Yeah.
So this is why I always say, like, you cannot self-affirmation your way out of trauma.
Yeah.
You cannot self-affirmation your way into a healthy nervous system.
Yeah.
And so my definition of a healthy nervous system is it's beyond cognitive.
Yeah.
It's a felt sense, and it's almost like a toning of your vagus nerve on the daily. And it's the ability to recognize and validate and not gaslight yourself when you're pissed off about something, and simultaneously be able to choose to act or respond in a way that feels in line with your own integrity and values.
Okay.
But again, it's beyond cognitive.
Right.
It's this ability to attune and love yourself through the reaction, because it's not wrong. Right? I think a lot of people think that a regulated nervous system is just being a fucking robot.
Yeah.
It's not that. It is feeling the full breadth of your experience and still being able to have an open heart. And
So
a regulated-ish body.
Yeah. I guess that's what, I think some of the lexicon or narrative is around nervous system regulation is like you're this calm, meditator in the Alps somewhere, like never having an emotional response, but it's letting yourself go through the emotional response with self-compassion and getting to a place where your system isn't hijacked by whatever's triggering you, that you're actually able to feel it and make aligned choices. Do I have that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I really disagree with, there's a lot of, meditation coaches or spiritual coaches or whatever that's like, yeah, the marker of enlightenment or the marker of a regulated nervous system is not getting hooked ever. And okay, maybe that's a part of this thing, but man, that just feels like some bypassing shit to me. It feels like this, this floating away from the brutality of the world.
Well, and it's what you were saying earlier about the truck, right? Like, well, okay, if you don't respond to that, you die. So it goes beyond just like responding or thinking. That's like the way our species survives. That's like basic level, right? So to get to a place where nothing ever bothers you or triggers you, or you're out here, like you would die, which goes against our body and species whole.
Right. And my goal is not to be a fucking robot.
Yeah.
We are human, and we are impacted by other human beings, by the systems that are organized around lack and not enoughness and perfectionism and, urgency and fear and whatever. Like, we are impacted by that.
Yeah.
And I almost don't trust people who say that they're not impacted by that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right? Like it just feels again, bypassing, that spiritual bypassing that I think if we go too far into the ethereal spiritual world side of things, we get out of our humanity and we tend to gaslight people in their human experience.
And I sometimes feel like these super even keeled non-emotive, that's their own trauma response, right? If I can't 100%. Have a big response to the brutality of the world or global warming or the things, the oppressive systems, if I can't have a response to that, that's because I'm, having my own trauma reaction. I'm having my own protective experience within that. And I think
100%. Yeah, it could be a false regulated system. It could be a sort of miniature dissociation. Or, or a fawning kind of response. And it to me, that's not actually regulated because you're not attuned to your own emotion.
Right.
And I think attunement is a really necessary component in nervous system regulation. Love and compassion and understanding and open-heartedness is not just your, paisley shawl therapist, nice hippie trope kind of thing. It's really a necessary enzyme, and it physiologically impacts our system. When you feel a sense of attunement with another human being, and that you feel their regulated system that is like in it with you and sitting alongside you in your pain, and then you also become that for yourself, that is a necessary component of a regulated nervous system. To be present to what is happening emotionally, body sensation, to be attuned is something that I think a lot of people don't have in their caregivers, in our society, with their selves.
Well, we are surrounded by things that prevent us from that regulation, like our phones and our technology.
Yeah. Guilty. Man, that is like my biggest dissociation.
Oh, yeah. And they've got my number. Like Instagram is like, I know you want to see some baby goats and somebody making art and some mental health quotes. And I'm like, yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Oh my God. This is this is hilarious. Ironically, I read half of a book called Stolen Focus.
Perfect.
And he talks about how our collective attention span is part of why we cannot collectively stay focused long enough to solve bigger problems. Not to mention our very short-term memory loss that I feel like is happening right now.
100%.
In election season, which, talking about nervous system regulation. Whoo, right? Like, I have to dissociate from it a little bit. And that's the other thing too. It's like your system is not defective. Dissociation is, we don't want to get rid of that. If you're being eaten by a bear, you want to dissociate.
Yeah. And that's an interesting piece with clients around something needs to be fixed. I'm broken. I'm traumatized. And so I need to like heal that and fix it and get to a different place and a different arrival point. And then the hijacking of words like being regulated. And what I'm hearing you say is like, don't stop calling this bad. Stop saying this is wrong. Stop saying you're fucked up. Start saying I'm having an appropriate, normal human response to the things that have happened to me in the world that I live in.
Totally. And holding alongside of that, the growth, the beauty, the creativity, you're finding the corners of power and choice that you do have in the world, reclaiming yourself, finding your voice, and also I think that collective piece of knowing that you are not alone in this. That is another, I think, trauma response is that we feel like we are all alone. And we're not. We're really not. So I was going to say something else, but I totally ADHD'd that shit. It'll come back.
You just jump in whenever that hops back in your brain.
Well, one thing that's sticking out for me, and a lot of the conversations that we've had on this podcast and a lot of what I have been working with in my own life is just how do we, heal ourselves, but also recognize that like the capitalistic system that we live in is not supporting us for that. And the one thing that I'm hearing from you that feels a little different that I'm drawn to and that I like to hear is when you're talking about healing, you're not talking about healing to do more or find your purpose or fill in the blank. You're saying like, how do we heal to feel empowered to do what we want to do, to be creative, to make choices for ourselves? Like something I'm appreciating about what you're saying is, Erica, is getting to know yourself more, getting aligned with yourself, really that self-embodiment piece, rather than I think some of the cultural healing narrative is heal to do this, heal to find your purpose, heal to accomplish this goal and cross this finish line. And the language I'm hearing from you is not that. Would you expand on any of that?
Yes. And that actually brought me back to what I was going to talk about before. So thanks.
Oh, look at that.
Serendipity, yeah. So if I could
shamelessly on track.
Shamelessly plug the book that I'm working on right now. It is called Always Enough, Never Done. And so my sort of idea around that is I think it's actually a very Judeo-Christian, white people, perfectionistic, capitalistic idea that there is this perfect version of yourself out here in the ether somewhere that you're trying to hustle towards, that you're trying to get to, that you're trying to heal towards, right? Fuck that. What you are trying to heal towards is what is always and already inside of you. Always and already. You are always and already enough. You are always and already worthy. You are always and already lovable. You are always and already interconnected to every other living thing on this planet. That is non-negotiable. It was true before you were born. It was true in the womb. It was true when you were being abused. It was true when you were, having sex with dudes that you didn't really want to because you were trying to look for love in all the wrong places because of your cliche daddy issues. And it was true now. It's true now.
Yeah.
And, that dipping your toes into the waters of that, of remembering that what you are healing towards is always and already. It is primary.
Right.
And the trauma and the generational trauma and all that other shit, the systemic shit, the capitalist trauma, it's traumatizing living in this fucking society. Right?
Yes.
And all of that, your reaction to that is not defective. Your reaction to that is human.
Right.
And it is trying to keep you safe, and it is trying to keep you connected. Those are everything that we do as humans is trying to get those two needs met, either safety, autonomy, power, control, or connection, belonging, attachment.
Yeah.
But all of that we do is secondary, even if it feels true, right? So Resmaa Menakem, I love him. He wrote My Grandmother's Hands. He does a lot of work around racialized trauma. And one of my favorite quotes is, if you put a person in a traumatizing situation for long enough, their response is going to look like personality. And if you put a collective group of people in a traumatizing society for long enough, and that generational trauma is going to look like their collective trauma response is going to look like culture.
Wow.
And so what feels like personality and what feels true, even if it feels like it's been here a long time, is secondary. What is primary is you're always and already enough, lovable, worthy, and interconnectivity. And that is what we are here. We're just peeling back the layers of what is secondary.
Yeah.
We're just remembering our true nature. We're not hustling towards more productivity and more urgency and more perfectionism. Fuck that. That's the trauma response. We want, it's not like we're trying to all be, ukulele players on the beach naked and shit. We want you to do your work. Although next life, y'all, next life, I am being reincarnated as that Muppet Janice.
Yes.
Naked and high all the time. Or a golden retriever. A golden retriever is my next life.
Love that.
Chilling, belly rubs.
I think Hannah's task in this life might be the naked on the beach.
Yeah, that
might be her for her now.
Maybe this life. Yes, maybe. But no, I mean, and we have inspired action to do. That's what the never done is. We are going to have shadows until the day we die because we are carrying generational trauma. And if you're not looking at your shit, if you are not looking at your pain and you're just living in the always and already, you're likely bypassing some shit. And if you don't do your hard work, if you don't do some trauma work, some grief work, some pain, some going towards what is not so pretty about yourself, about our families, about our communities, about our system, we will cause harm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you're making me think a lot of me and my fiance. We just were in the car for 20 hours. We drove our dogs out east to West Virginia and they had a great week. And we had a lot of conversations, but you're making me think of we talked a lot, and not to get political, but like the Supreme Court decisions and Trump and everything going on. And, a lot of the conversations we had are like, the question is, how can this be happening? Why is this happening? But you're speaking to it. Like, it's trauma, right? Like, it's trauma for hundreds of years. And I mean, I haven't been around for hundreds of years, but I've been around for 31. And culturally, how much trauma have we been through in the last 4 years with COVID and police brutality and the economy and climate change? Like, we're all traumatized living in this world together. And I think that's what you're speaking to here a little bit. And so for me, it's a good reminder of when I go to this place of like, holy shit, how can Trump potentially be the president? Like, trauma is the answer, right?
Oh, totally. And that culture is providing a sense of belonging that unfortunately the left doesn't have. They have this they have done such a good job of organizing around identity. There is a sense of belonging there, that and community and culture that and again it is organized around that good, bad, safe, not safe. We are right, and that it's such a limbic system collective response. And you're talking about our personal lives in this culture, but we are also talking about generational trauma. We are only understanding what we carry. We can carry up to 14 generations of trauma in our systems.
I'm actually thinking of something you talked about from your book that applies to us individually, which is the upward, you explain it. There's ascending and descending treatment of trauma and experiences. I'm wondering if that even applies.
Totally. In terms of our history, in terms of really doing the descending path work and the accountability work and the repair work, right? When it comes to the earth and repairing our relationship with the earth, when it comes to white people actually collectively taking accountability for the trauma that we have caused, Black and brown people, when it comes to men actively doing the work to collectively repair the trauma that has happened on female identified bodies, even, the LGBTQ, or I would say LGB folks that have caused harm and left behind the trans folks, when it comes to actively repairing something. So let's talk about the personal. When we cause harm, we should feel a healthy degree of guilt about that. Right? If we say we're going to dog sit and we get plastered and we let the dog out and the dog gets hurt, we fucked up, and we should have a healthy degree of guilt about that. And that the actual steps of accountability are: you own it and you apologize for it. You stay as regulated as you can. You don't make it all about you, but you own it. You're like, I really, really fucked up. But that is only the first step. Then you have to try to make it right. I want to be culpable for the vet bills. I want to try to balance the scales back out. Right? Then you try to figure out what the hell happened. Do I have a drinking problem? Do I need to address some shit? Why was I so dissociated and let this happen? What do I have ADHD and I need to address some things, like I wasn't checking the gate. What happened so that I can make different choices, and you make a plan for doing something different in the future. And then the fourth step is you actually own the consequences of your actions. I understand if you don't trust me to dog sit forever or for a while. I understand if you're pissed at me forever. I understand if you don't want to be friends anymore. That is just radically accepting the consequences and allowing people to have their own responses. And then you let it go. Then you try to move forward. Right? And if you think about that collectively, that has not happened. In terms of our history.
We're not even at step one.
Right? If we go to shame, we're like, why did you trust me to Doctor, I'm the worst. I'm such a piece of shit. Right? That's what white people do when we're talking about racism.
Yeah.
Or that's what men do when we're talking about patriarchy. We go to shame. We go to our own wounding and our own subjugated identities. And we're like, I can't be privileged. I'm poor. I can't be privileged. I'm blah, blah, blah. You know, like, I'm not racist. I'm Jewish. I'm not racist. I'm gay. I'm not, you know, like all this shit that we go to defensiveness because of shame. And we cannot stand in the accountability that needs to happen. And so accountability, this is what we're talking about, like the physical, like circling back to where we started, that identity, that physical world piece can't be ignored.
Yeah.
Because we have some accountability to do collectively before we can move on.
Yeah.
So that's that descending path work. That's that reparative work. That's that processing trauma work that collectively we have not done. And then, yes, we do need that ascending path work of what are the values that we want to guide the way. My suggestions would be equity, beauty, connection, compassion. I mean, imagine what the world would look like if we had the value of beauty as a driving force. Not glamour, not prettiness, but beauty. Like even if I could, you know, get a little somatic therapist-y on you and your audience, is like just feel the word beauty in your body. And compassion, you know, or reciprocity. What would reciprocity in our collective value system feel like and look like in our bodies? What would the world look like? What would our communities look like? What would our environments look like? If reciprocity with each other and with the earth, if beauty with each other and the earth, what would that feel like in your system? And that's what we're talking about, is going beyond this cognitive knowing. It's like, drop into it, feel it, integrate it, deepen it. Let that be the value system in your relationships, and embody that more, not just trope it, you know. Cognitive, nice idea, trite.
So why do you think, what is your hypothesis or idea on, because I agree with you, but why is the standard of care and why is most therapy come in, talk about the week, think it through, be in your head, done and dusted? Why is the therapy cognitive? What is your hypothesis?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that is white people, patriarchy stuff, right? Because generally and historically, I think the rhetoric is women are emotional, men are logical, and logical is better. And the thinking and the rational in the left brain is better. It is hierarchically more valuable than the right brain, than the emotional, than the spiritual, than the, you know, this holding space abyss-like kind of thing. And I think, you know, just historically, you know, if we're talking about like Descartes and philosophically, we sort of have this scientific revolution was really great. And by, you know, my spirituality needs to leave room that science is real, right? Like, we don't want to like gaslight that either. But historically, scientifically, we felt that we were separate. We were separate from the earth, that we were separate from each other, that there's this physical separation from the spirit, from the earth, from each other, etc. And now I think we're moving into a much more quote unquote feminine, whatever the fuck that means. My trans friends would kill me, right? But like historically, stereotypically feminine, which is more emotional, which is more interconnected, which is more spiritual, which is more wise mind, right? Where we're not completely being led by our emotions reactively, but where we can have that Venn diagram of the rational mind and the emotional mind and come into wise mind.
Yeah.
And so historically, I think we have valued the left brain functions, tasks, productivity, getting shit done, etc., more than the right brain, which is big picture, art, etc. And really, we are a left brain valued society. And the left brain does not see the value of the right brain. Like even individually, when the left brain is damaged, or yeah, wait, do I have that wrong? I think when the right brain is damaged, the left brain's like, I got this, I can do this. Like the left brain is sort of like the task master, and it feels like it's doing everything. Where the right brain is the sort of the overseer and sees the big picture. And the right brain can see the value of the left brain, but the left brain does not see the value of the right brain. And so as a society, I think we are a left brain oriented society that does not see the value of the right brain.
Yeah.
What role do you think creativity is going to play in all the things we're talking about unfolding?
Oh, it's such a paradox because trauma shuts down creative process and creative thinking. And creative thinking is the very thing that we need to heal trauma.
Yeah.
You know? And so, oh man, I saw this great meme that was like, I don't have a problem with AI. We're just using it in the wrong way. Like AI needs to be doing our dishes and our laundry and shit, not so that I can make more art and write more.
That's right.
Not AI making the art and writing more so that I have more time to do dishes and shit.
Yeah.
Right? I think the human creative process is the healing process.
Yeah.
Even if you're not painting or whatever, like arranging your space, creative thinking in terms of relationships, creative thinking in terms of being in harmony with each other in our world, like that's going to be a necessary component. And a creativity is also something that is primary. That is our natural state. It is not something that needs to be hustled for or earned. And the problem is that we have attached creativity with performance.
Yes.
Like, do we judge it as good?
Yeah.
Do we judge art as good? We don't sing together as a society. You know, we don't dance together as a society. Is like the one thing I miss about church is like singing in a group.
Yeah.
Right. So it's why I actually do I direct children's theater, and I lead the Thriller Dance Flash Mob every year, and like that's why, because it's so silly and playful, but honestly it feels like the most spiritual thing I'm doing, because I am singing and dancing with kids and with my community. And yes, it's a performance, and we want it to be a good performance, but it's really about like the healing nature of what is happening when we do that together.
It's interesting because the first half of my career was as a songwriter and performer, and I put my first album out when I was 16, and I remember my guitar teacher. Have I already told this story on the podcast?
But
I'll just keep telling it again.
I love it.
Again, it's all right.
I played a song I wrote for him, and then he put a strap on the guitar and made me stand up and was like, "You're going to be a star." And I was 14, 15. So I was like, oh, like this creative thing I love doing is like a means to an end, and it's going to make me money. It's going to make me famous. Like, so it became very product oriented, and then it became very perfectionist oriented. And then when you look at the way we encourage artists to try, it's very hard to just inherently make money as an artist, right? So then they're on Instagram and they're trying to perform or they're trying to sell something, and none of that is bad, right? But I think it can take out some of the joy when you're so product oriented and followers oriented. And then do you still love it? I mean, and maybe that's just a personal struggle of like, how do I love being, how can I fall back in love with creativity and singing and moving and all those things that we used to do naturally together, right?
For sure. And my approach is to first acknowledge and have grace for and understand the parts of you, the parts of us that have inevitably had to absorb that shit, that have inevitably had to absorb perfectionism and product oriented shit, because that's what, you know, that we think our brain, like living in that trauma soup, our systems think that that is our belonging and that that's our power. So one is to have grace for and like grief around, to honor the grief of what got taken away in that, and to not make you stupid or bad or lazy or whatever for getting out of the industry, because it of course you are impacted by that. You are not a robot. And so, and the parts of you that absorb that, we're trying to keep you safe, and we're trying to keep your sense of belonging intact. And then you know, it's like we feel trapped. But the more that you can reclaim a creative process, whatever it is, and to just do it and to deconstruct perfectionism, even as you are holding the part of you that is perfectionistic, right? That wants to make a good song, or that wants to draw a pretty painting, and like, you know, that there's room for that too. And you fucking do it anyway, right? Like, and you doodle, or you paint just for painting, or you sing just for singing. Not because you're going to be on The Voice, but you just do it because it is healing for your body and your nervous system. And you're holding alongside the parts of you that want it to be good and that want people to like it, because you're fucking human. And at the same time, you're sprinkling a little bit of not give a fuck as much as you can and doing it anyway.
Sort of feel like I should pay you for this session.
There you are.
Oh man, this is my jam. I love this shit. We could talk all day.
It's really making me think of, and you know, I'm a psychedelic therapist too, and when people come into, well, I think two things. One, I think how different would the world be if psychedelic therapy, somatic therapy, nervous system regulation, relational therapy would be the front line, and not like, oh, I failed all these other therapies, so I'm going to do this, right? Like, I just think about how different people's experiences would be. But then often, I mean, and Erica, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, people that do want to do psychedelic therapy with me, they come in and they're like, this is going to be so hard. I'm going to do so much trauma work, and I'm going to trudge and heal. And yeah, but also I'm like, honestly, most of the work that I do in my office is like letting people feel good, is like having people feel joy and relaxed and like love for the first time. And it's not this like trudging through shit. It's actually quite the opposite. I wonder if this ties into what you see in your practice, and even the creativity piece of, you know, trauma shuts down our ability to be creative, and it shuts down our ability to feel pleasure. And we have to turn that back on, I think, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's both and, right? I have simultaneously done that digestive work of feeling like my mom was addressing her sexual abuse through my session, and felt the interconnectivity of all living things. Like even Trump came in to a session, and I like, it was so wild, like Trump and Dolly Parton. Before this whole thing happened, this was like 6 years ago, right? Like Trump and Dolly Parton were both in my session, and it was like, it's all God. It's all spirit. It's all one thing. And I was like, I came back into my human body, and I was like, ugh, gross.
Like Donald Trump is not the same as Dolly Parton.
Yeah, I'm
know,
Trump to come
right?
to my session.
Yeah, that's some advanced shit.
Yeah.
That's advanced.
But it was like, it could be okay, you know, like I could be not okay and okay at the same time.
Yeah.
I can be in deep grief and traumatized and feel a deep sense of brokenness and still remember that always and already. Like there's this sense of like, I can be okay and feel joy and feel pleasure and reclaim that shit.
Yeah.
Yes, pleasure is another thing that I think has, again, if we're deconstructing Judeo-Christianity spiritual trauma, pleasure is equated to being bad, is equated to sinfulness.
Yeah,
our bodies are bad. So inevitably we distrust our bodies. If we were raised in a shame-based spiritual community, which I was, I think that is just an insidious thing, that even if we cognitively do not believe that shit anymore, that is embedded in our nervous system. And psychedelic therapy is a beautiful way to help dissolve some of that. And it's honestly the only thing that has helped dissolve some of that. And I am so grateful that it is becoming more common. And this is where I want to bring in that physical world trauma piece, like importance of actually doing the work, because a lot of people think that you're just going to throw ketamine or throw mushrooms in a system and everything's going to be fine. Oh, no. Au contraire. Like you do have to do some work. You do have to look at some shadows. And if you're feeling joy, and if your session is just about pleasure and feeling the oneness of the universe and actually getting a break from your chronic pain, fuck yeah too. Right? Like that is great as well.
And honestly, being a psychedelic therapist, and that has been, my main focus for the past couple of years. I was definitely, when I started the whole psychedelic therapy journey, it was like, talk therapy doesn't work, Actually, like psychedelic therapy has made me appreciate talk therapy more, because I do think it's a both and, right? It's the experience of the psychedelic, it's the opening, it's the spirituality, it's the joy, it's the Donald Trump in your session, it's all of that. But it's also like, let's sit here and have a conversation about how you need to have a hard conversation with your partner. Let's sit here and have a hard conversation about how to integrate this, right? And so I think it is that both and of how do we integrate all of it and make space for all of it, because it isn't just a panacea, a magic pill. I just look at it as a tool and a catalyst. That's it, right?
Exactly. Which allows you to actually show up to these difficult conversations with a regulated nervous system. Because have you ever had the experience of like your partner is like saying the right words or saying the words that their therapist told them to say, but you can intuitively feel that their nervous system is not attuned or regulated, right? And so we have to still work on our shit and show up with a regulated system, which is not going to happen with just thinking,
right?
And then it's so both and, it's so in and out, it's so like, yes, we need actually, like me shit talking self-affirmation practice for years. Now I have a self-affirmation practice.
Right,
it actually feels like it's working. It feels like I'm not trying to convince myself of something, which is what I think a lot of self-affirmation practice is like neurotically back, like, I am worthy, I am beautiful, I love my body, and you're just like convincing yourself, and the other parts are like, this is bullshit. Like, I just feel like you're lying. I'm just lying to myself.
Yeah.
And so ironically enough, right, like after some deep work, ketamine work, psychedelic work, EMDR descending path work, I can actually do some of that
Totally.
more positive thinking practice,
Totally.
that it actually lands in a different way.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree. Like talk therapy has value, and we probably need to be doing some talk therapy and some trauma work before we put psychedelics in the system.
100%.
Yes.
And then we do a little more.
Yeah.
And then we, it's like, it's a non-linear process. And again, one of the metaphors that I use, the cover of the book is like a kaleidoscope, because I think of that it's like this iteration of you, of our society, of your, your relationship is exactly as it is supposed to be. It's perfect and it's whole and it's right where it is, like this iteration of the kaleidoscope, right? And then it turns and things compost and things go away. And then it, like that compost, whatever you're letting go of, becomes fertile soil for this kaleidoscope, this iteration. And you might have to let some things go or process through some shit, but then it's like, there's this new iteration, but it's always whole. It's always good enough. It's always and already perfect.
Right.
And we've got some work to do.
100%. And that's why I think your title of your book is perfect, right? Is, because I do think it's just seasons of life. There's no summit in life. Like we never, like we die and like, who knows what the hell happens. But I think what I think sometimes can be such a hard thing for myself and for friends and clients is in this culture that says, go to school, go to college, make this money, get married, have the kid, retire, buy the second home, da 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 da. Where it's like, actually, like that is not my experience and most people's experiences. So it's like, how do we navigate that? Like you're saying, this kaleidoscope of being with that and being with this, like, how do we integrate all of that? And actually, I think when most people strip away that systemic expectation and that there's this summit that I have to achieve, there's freedom. And then they do find contentment, but it's trying to fit into that marathon moving goalpost, achieve, check the box onto the next thing. I don't know. It just, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And we have to live in the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to be creative about what is beyond capitalism. And we live in a capitalist society. Right? Like, and I don't want to live on a hippie commune and grow my own food. I actually don't want to do that. And I don't want to live in a multi-generational house. Yeah. I don't want to live with my dad all the time.
Yeah.
I love you, Dad, but I don't want to live with you. You know, I don't know what the solution is, but like, we have to live in the world. And we have to deconstruct what's not working, and we have to reimagine what it could be. Like it's funky. We're in this really crazy. I feel like we are in this wild.
Yeah, I agree.
Reimagining, turning of a paradigm, and we are in this major transitional place, and we all feel it. I think we all feel it, and whatever I don't know. I don't know that we have exactly what it's going to look like. It's unwritten, the new kaleidoscope, right? Yeah. But it's a wild time to be alive, like, but yes, I absolutely. So I guess what I'm saying, Hannah, is like to have grace for the parts of me that even with this book, feel like I got to get this book in the world. I got to be productive. I want to make money with it. I have to do that, and I want to be in the energies of impact and service and hope that this book helps people. Right. And I believe that it is. It does feel aligned with that. It feels like the universe wants this book to come through me. It's not like I'm just writing it to be productive or because I feel like there's ego in it. and there's some ego in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like we have to have this both and we are going to be wanting to be productive, and we're going to have some perfectionism shit, and we're going to have some urgency, and we've got to be clear about what is ours, what feels aligned for us in the current iteration of our kaleidoscope, even if we know that some of it is capitalist bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm saying is it goes back to what you were saying with nervous system regulation, right? Is like, you know, it's individual. It's getting to the place where I like have done enough where I see that, you know, I live in this world and what can I do on an individual basis, right? Like for me, I'm engaged, we're having a wedding, but we're going to do it in our own way and we're going to put a spin on it, right?
Totally.
And like I have to work and make money, but can I be okay with making a little bit less money so I can do something like this podcast that we make no money yet, but it's lit me up and inspired me to show up for my clients more? Can I not see clients on Mondays so I can go play pickleball and enjoy my life, right? It's like kind of doing the both. And I think it's like not drinking the Kool-Aid one way or another, I guess, is what you're saying,
100%.
right?
Yeah, 100%. I think this is something that if we are social justice oriented and then we think about our own making of money, it bumps up, right? Like it inevitably bumps up. And then I think about like, I think therapists in general, female identified folks in general, have been programmed to give their shit away for free. That therapy is a charity. That therapy is, you know, you should suckle on these for free. Fuck that at the same time, you know, like this is not a charity. This is a profession. We go to school, we have training, we have expertise, and that needs to be valued. And how do we reimagine capitalism? How do we reimagine something better?
Right.
And so, you know, even like that value of service, it has this rub for me, right? Because of my Christian upbringing and because it feels like I should be martyry and I should be giving away my shit for free and I should be running on scarcity and doing all of it for the good of humankind. And it rubs me, you know, like I feel like whatever this reimagined is can't be martyry. Martyry is also a trauma response.
For sure.
And running on scarcity and self-sacrifice also has its shadow.
And I, from my religious background, I have the same response. I never really liked the word service. In fact, I struggle with the word kindness. When I see things like be a good person, be a kind person, they don't resonate with me. They rub me the wrong way. I love the word reciprocity. I love the word empowerment, but I struggle with a lot of those other words because of they're based in the free labor of women, basically. And the martyrdom of women and the, you know, the power, they're based in power dynamics, you know, and who does the service and who doesn't.
And if you think about nurses and teachers and community mental health workers, those systemically are based on the assumption that people are going to work for very, very little money. And those are predominantly female oriented jobs. And people are starting to heal or they're getting so wounded that they just can't do it anymore. And they're leaving in droves, right? Nurses are leaving in droves. Teachers are leaving in droves. Community mental health workers are either newbies and they last for 2 years, or they're old school folks that have been there forever and they're probably not very good therapists anymore. Sorry. Love you people. You're doing the best you can. We're all out here doing the best we can. But like, even gratitude, right? Like gratitude, I think we have to be really mindful of. It's like, there's a part of me that's like, I hear gratitude and I hear that preachy shit that's like, be grateful for what you have. Just be grateful for what you have. And it's like, I have to be allowed to want more and to want pleasure and to want to go see the ocean 2 times a year or whatever, and to want to be able to not worry about my kids' braces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want freedom
Yes.
and
freedom.
liberation. And
Yeah.
that, we got to live in the world around that. And it sucks. It sucks. And, I have been poor, and being poor sucks.
Yes.
And also being poor is not activism. Like I used to kind of think like me staying poor is me staying in alignment with the people on the streets. And it's like, I can have way more impact if I have some financial abundance. Rachel Rogers, she has a book called We Should All Be Millionaires. She's a Black woman. And I love her reframe. It's like when Black and brown and queer and trans and female identified people actually are making money, this is where things shift systemically.
But what's scary is when those people have money, how they're going to use it to take down to dismantle systems that aren't working, or to create completely other systems outside of
the system.
Systems that are making certain type of people, this very, very small percentage of people, very wealthy. So I think it's very threatening when you start to see these groups claim power.
100%. And it's why we see this last gasp of the old paradigm, right? That I don't even know his name. What's that Kansas City guy that was like, women should stay in the home, or like you're happiest when you're a homemaker or whatever. And the whole Trump thing, it's like, it's just this last gasp of this old paradigm, because they know that a change is a coming. It is not, the world is getting blacker and browner and queerer, and get on the train, y'all, or because it is happening.
We're here.
We might go through a real ugly period, but it is happening. And I operate on the assumption that that is going to happen.
Yeah.
Period. It just is. And it's a good thing, and it's a beautiful thing. And so, how do we get creative? I know women that are buying houses together as a community, and starting to build some wealth that way, rather than this like nuclear family, and building economies that are different, and building miniature communities that are super creative and outside of that programmed trajectory.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. I think we can be excited even as we are sitting with the brutality and the grief and the trauma
and the fear
and the horror of the world.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, at this point, like, we've already had this great conversation. There's so many directions I want to go now. I'm like, I want to talk about all the ways we could creatively create, alternative structures to capitalism. And I want to talk about how I'm bringing my own perfectionism and capitalistic mind to even that process. And like, now we need to go out and change the world, but I want to have my art practice. And I don't want to have urgency, and I want to talk about spiritual bypassing and all those pieces. So all to say, we'd love to have you back, but I'm curious if you can, anything, I know we covered a lot that's probably in your book, but is there anything in the book that we haven't covered, or do you kind of want to give us the kind of the arc of what you explore? We're very excited to read it.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I was telling y'all before we started recording. So your wordy girl over here has written basically a 500-page book. And all of the writing coaches and all of the marketing people are like, you cannot publish a 500-page book. So I am trying to edit it down, but I would honestly rather write another 500 pages than try to edit this thing. But I am committed to it being in one place, because I feel like that, just like this conversation, tying nervous system regulation into work around racial trauma, tying our body image stuff. So we didn't talk a whole lot about that, but the body image stuff is a big section of the book. Addictions, our own relationships with our bodies, chronic pain. There's a part of that, and how that relates to our interconnectivity, and how we carry chronic pain as generational trauma. Not, I'm not saying that like all chronic pain is trauma caused, but it is related. So like how we tie all of these things together is really important to me.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of 8 sections. It's nervous system regulation, and then it's all these resources of nervous system regulation practices, meditations, things, movements to do with your body, polyvagal resets, all of that stuff. Just sort of a fire hose of resources, attachment stuff.
Great.
And then we get into like descending path work and trauma work, and then ascending path work and how you do that. And then the macro stuff like spirituality and racism and all of that. So it is a wild ride. It is a total ADHD brain book, but I want it to be in one place,
Yeah.
So, and then the body image stuff is it's a whole other section. So I almost wanted to just say you're getting 8 books in one.
Lucky us.
It might be a really long book, and so just take it in small, digestible pieces. So I might be breaking the rules and putting a really long book out into the world, even though I know it's going to be a lot. So.
But what I love about it is somebody saying to you, here's what people can handle.
Yeah.
Here's the structure. Here's the amount. Here's the packaging that you need to make. Like, here's the box. You got to put your information in.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, you put your rebellion even to the structure of things.
Yes.
Like if the whole world is like, Erica, this is how we can handle your information. And then you're like, well, fuck it. Here's 8 books in one. And like, it all needs to be in one place because that's the reality.
Yeah.
Then that's what you do. I'm like,
and I also hold my own ADHD brain that I'm like, I wouldn't fucking read this book. I don't have time for a 400-page book. But, I don't know. I'm just going to put it out there. And, I have a course that's basically the same information. I have an online course. So if people want to do that instead, and, I'm just going to put it out there, and hopefully people can digest it in small bits as they can, and it just might want to be born that way. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Love it.
Yeah. This is going to be off the record to both of you, since we're probably at about an hour since we started a few minutes in. Did we miss anything before we do like a wrap up?
I mean, I could talk to you forever, but we'll just have to have you back on.
Same, y'all. I feel so really, truly grateful that you're doing this. It's so beautiful, this work. It's really exactly in alignment with the way that my brain works and the way that I want to be doing work. And just, I feel like it's in alignment too with where the collective is heading. It's exciting. Like I love that more people are just having these conversations. Something that I do think we didn't talk about is queerness and reclaiming spirituality after spiritual trauma. I think we touched in on a little bit, but I don't know if we want to do that now or not.
We'll just throw it in, and we can.
Yeah, and if you want to cut it out, or if we want to come back and have a whole separate conversation, we can. But
I mean, I'm kind of curious. It'd be interesting to almost do a roundtable, because I have a sibling who's non-binary who was raised Mormon, went on a mission, and I've been thinking about like they'd be an interesting, maybe we bring in like 2 or 3 folks and have a kind of roundtable conversation about comparing, contrasting experiences.
Yeah, totally.
That could be interesting. But let's what do you think?
I mean, I would love to do it now, but I also want to give it the time and space that it.
Yeah, I don't want to rush through it,
because that's a topic I really want. I mean, if you would be willing to come back and, dedicate another hour. And I mean, I know that's a lot to ask, but I would really love to do.
But again, this feels really aligned. Like I'm doing a couple other podcasts that, it's just not, this is very much lighting me up. Being able to talk about these things in this really wild way feels really fun and good. So I'm down. Yeah, I'm totally down.
Okay.
I would love to do that because I would love
Yeah.
to do a whole nother conversation with you about that.
Because the
Yeah.
other, you mentioned spiritual bypassing a couple of times, and
yes.
that's, that's a topic that I think people don't understand, that they could go on for longer. We could really explain that both in the new agey world and in the
100%.
Christian world, in the what,
in some ways it's worse
world.
in like the Buddhist and the woo-woo and
Yes.
the meditative good vibes only bullshit, right?
100%.
Like,
yeah, I mean, we've had so many conversations about that and how toxic that can be, and how many friends I have that are like doing the work, which just means they do drugs with a bunch of people and don't integrate anything. They never integrate anything,
Totally. And reclaiming spirituality as a queer person has been such a it's like hard process. Like, because I like my spirituality dirty, like I need my feet on the ground. I need science to be real. I want my spirituality to be still grounded in my humanity.
For sure.
And it's like queer people like need permission. And everybody needs permission to find the spirituality that aligns for them. And even if it's like part atheist, like even if your spirituality is like, it has room for that.
Totally.
That room, I don't know. So I would love to have a whole other conversation about that.
Yeah, we'd be up for that. That'd be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Totally. If we want to go really big, but this is like my ADHD, like let's make it all big brain, Leo brain. But we could do an event. We could do an event that we record that's like queer people recovering from spirituality, and record it and put it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And then, like, you could promote your stuff.
Totally. It would be fun. I mean,
I always make stuff.
Really want to I think you could do like, it would be awesome to do a retreat, like we could do some ketamine work, and maybe we could do a little bit of a workshop, a little bit of some body practice. I could lead a yoga practice, like, reclaiming dirty spirituality or something like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So Hannah does ketamine retreats. I do like creativity writing retreats. And I find them really fun.
Love that.
Easy to plan. They can be great. Yeah. So if that's something we want to like keep talking about,
I would love that.
And thinking about.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of my thought too, around like expanding the one-on-one offerings and just doing something different, I mean, I think we need the community, the conversation.
Oh, for sure. Because there's such a rub around doing this work in groups or doing it collectively, even for me, right? Like there's this like, I don't want to do group work, or I don't want to do, there's definitely some stuff in there, but I think it's so important and beautiful. So it could be really powerful and cool.
Well, I think like I've noticed for myself, and we were raised Mormon, my sibling Davy, I think part of the non-joining is the trauma response. I'm a non-joiner. I don't do this in groups, right?
Because it was dangerous.
It's not safe. It's not safe to do something in a group.
The group harmed you. The joining, the buying, the buying the bullshit, the Kool-Aid. It was harmful. It was so harmful, and you got tricked. Your body got tricked. You thought it was belonging. You thought it was love, and it wasn't. It was harmful. And so I honor that in you, and I honor that in me, that joining was dangerous, and it was actually dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it was fucking harmful.
Okay, I'm gonna bring us back and ask you to talk a little bit more about your e-courses, how to find you, what you're offering, what's coming up.
Okay, sounds good.
Erica, this has been an amazing conversation. Yes. We just had a whole side conversation that our listeners won't hear about all the things that we want to collaborate on. But just to bring it back around, can you tell us a little bit more? I know you have offerings already. You've got some e-courses online. You've got some free resources. You've got a group practice in Colorado. Tell us about those things, how to find you, how to get in touch with you.
Yeah. So first, I am so truly, truly just deeply grateful for both of you. Like, I could almost cry. Like it's so exciting to be with y'all. Like you are my people. Like the fact that you are doing this podcast that is so wild and expansive and just multi-passionate, again, like breaking down this whole bullshit around like niche down and find your specialty and blah blah blah. So I'm just so grateful, and I feel I want to like hug you both, and so thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I think probably the easiest way is to just check out the website, which is AVOS Counseling, AVOS counseling.com. And then I actually have a course for therapists that is EMDR and NBCC accredited for spiritual trauma. And then I lead a course on racialized trauma with Dr. Chinwe Williams, a beautiful, amazing therapist in Atlanta, Georgia. Those are both geared towards therapists, but anybody can take them. I think there's still benefit for people to taking them. And then I have Cultivate Your Inner Badass course, which is essentially kind of everything we talked about today. It's sort of the online course version of the book. And all of that can be found on the website, but I'll put links in the show notes. And then I have a free webinar on nervous system regulation. I've got a freebie handout on nervous system regulation. Chinwe and I have a free webinar on trauma, or on racialized trauma. And then again, I do ketamine assisted work and retreats and EMDR consultation, LPC supervision. Like, I'm all over the place. Yeah.
Love your brain.
So, but I think the website is the easiest way. And then I'll give y'all some links to put in the show notes for free resources for people. Yeah,
we'll definitely include those. And I know you have a newsletter too, so that people can sign up and kind of keep up with you.
Yeah, and honestly, just downloading one of the free resources is just the easiest way to get on my newsletter and to hear about the book too. I did buy the URL for the alwaysenoughneverdone.com, but there's nothing there yet. So avoscounseling.com, and I think my old website of ericabonham.com or ericabonhamcounseling.com still links to the new stuff. So if you Google me, I will show up.
Yep.
Yeah. So and I would love it if people got on my newsletter, because that's where we'll do the Amazon launch, the Kindle, like playing the capitalist game, y'all.
That's right, baby. That's right.
The Amazon Kindle launch day to try to become bestseller in your category.
That's right.
I hate it, but I'm embracing it and trying to
do what we gotta do, right?
Well, you're teaching us to keep a foot in the world and a foot in what could be, and I think that's
beautiful,
hard and beautiful, and you really seem to embody it in such a beautiful way, and you've got such a vibrant, alive spirit. It's so wonderful to be with you today.
Thanks, y'all. Like, but at the core of that, as with all of us, right, is this little girl that's like, am I good enough? Like, right? Don't you feel like I feel like all it can? I'm scared. I don't want to. There's a part of me every day that's like, oh, just go back to breakfast waitressing. It's so much fun. Yes. I'm such a good breakfast waitress. I'm so good at slinging eggs.
I know
it's so true. I am a powerful, strong ass woman, and I also have this little girl part that I've really learned to embrace and love, that's like scared and could cry all the time and not enough and not worthy, and it's just like, it's okay, like you can be here too, which
that's so helpful. I
think it's another different way of thinking about it. We think we're trying to get rid of those parts, and we're not.
Totally.
It's like, no, she can be here, like, and it's okay. So
I think all our little girl selves can just get together and play.
Yes, they should.
Draw and color and swing and things.
And
think about other people. Other people, right? All the Trump supporters, they're just little kids that want to be seen. And they're causing harm, but they really are just little boys that are wounded.
Yeah.
Well,
some of them need to go to jail, but they are still little
Sure.
boys.
Exactly.
You need to still hold people accountable.
You're right.
And
Yeah.
I can still see that they are little wounded humans.
Both and, right?
I was just going to say, Erica, we've queened you the
Yeah.
queen of both and today.
Hey, I love
you get a crown.
I love
If you
that.
want one,
Yeah.
you can have
And
it.
even both and with that too, because sometimes we do need to be very clear.
Yeah.
This is a fucking hard no.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So,
love it.
but thank you. That's a huge concept of the book, right? The title in and of itself is a non-duality. It's always enough, never done. And that's just, So I'm glad that I got that across. Yay.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. I love you both so much. And I would love to come back, really.
Great. We'll
Whatever
definitely
magical things we can do together, I'm down for sure.
Great.
Check out Erica and all the amazing work that she does. And we'll link all the resources and you will definitely hear her back on the podcast. Thanks, Erica.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
You've been listening to Are We Happy Yet? A podcast brought to you by Green Roof Studios. This episode was produced, recorded, and edited by Jane Thatcher Hahn and Hannah Buzzo. All original music was written and recorded by the Jane Thatcher Band. For more information about the show, or to get in touch with us, please visit our website at www.arewehappyyetpodcast.com. Thanks for joining. See you next time.